I am Ali Gass. I am the founding director of ICA San Francisco, which is an institution that is really committed to bringing really significant voices from around the country, around the world, putting them in dialogue with artists from the Bay Area, as that makes sense to do, to really understand sort of what is happening in contemporary art that helps us navigate the most critical social, political, cultural issues in the world around us. ICA is very specifically committed to really allowing artists to push their practice and do really significant kind of commission projects specifically that they wouldn't otherwise have a chance to do. The reason I was so excited when Wendi called me and said she was bringing your work here is, yes, I was the person who kind of put that whole jury together and gave you the Vilcek, I think it was called the Promise Prize, and we had so many incredible artists, and that's a very prestigious prize, and that was an incredible jury, and it was just like a unanimous no-brainer to give you that award, and we were together in New York at the award ceremony, and the power of your practice, I think, struck everyone in both, of course, the immediate kind of beauty that seduces one, but then as you begin to parse it, the kind of sort of power of difficulty and pain and complicated your sense of history, memory, and emotions that you are dealing with. And then of course the incredible, and we're going to talk about, I swear I'm going to stop talking in 2 seconds, but I want to sort of lay the groundwork for the things I want us to pull apart. And then the kind of really interesting different kinds of natural materials, found materials, quote unquote non-traditional materials that you work with, the basis of sort of kind of different kinds of craft traditions that you then rework, and this sort of intense commitment to notions of ephemerality that you contend with that then find some level of permanence to some extent. So I thought that we have this incredible privilege. The great privilege of my career, frankly, is to do what we are doing here, which is to talk with artists in person and understand their work. Before I actually start asking you questions, I'm going to say one last thing about this talk, which is that we have not spoken in advance of this. I walked in to see this show 5 minutes ago, basically. So you guys are really getting to see essentially what I would call an exhibition walkthrough, us talking about this work for the very first time, which is kind of my favorite way.
Even when we met, we didn't have a chance to talk.
We didn't talk. No, we were just like, hi, I love your work. So great to meet you. It's amazing for us to be able to have this conversation here in front of the work. So I do want us to spend a significant amount of time with each of these 3 objects, a major installation, and then these kind of discrete objects. But before we do that, I would love us to just kind of talk a little bit, this is the harder part for you, but a little bit about just sort of you and your practice. I recently did a studio visit with my board in New York, and an artist was like, the worst thing you could possibly do for me is just ask me tell me about your work. So I'm not going to do that.
But you are.
But I'm totally doing that. And so tell me about your work. No. I was going to ask you a little bit to tell me a little bit about sort of place and sort of if it is real for you in any way that where you are from is impactful to sort of the facts of sort of this sort of approach to materiality and ephemerality in any way.
That's a great question. I grew up in Barcelona, but not in the city center. I grew up in the natural park of Collserola, which right now is considered a natural park, but that's just the title that it got recently. But before, it was kind of like the outcast of Barcelona. It was like the borderline between Barcelona and the next world. And we had a lot of the most complicated kind of personalities would always land there, a taxi wouldn't take you there, or it was really, you couldn't ask for a pizza or anything. It was really isolated from the world. And I was growing up with a mother that was, we were 3 kids, and it was a single mother raising us with a job, 3 kids in this very kind of outcast place. So there was a lot of like isolation. But the interesting part about these woods too is that if you explore them, they were once they built the Catalan modernist houses for the holidays of the Catalan brigade, and they were all destroyed with civil war in Spain. And if you go into the woods and start like digging, literally with your shovel, you will find all of these incredible tiles, modernist tiles, as well as human bones. I'm not kidding, like human bones and all kinds of things. So that was one thing I was alone a lot of the time, and I was just very interested on like scavenging
and these are many things that appear later in your practice.
Yes. I feel like it made me kind of resourceful.
Yes.
And like I just love collecting. I started collecting a lot of things and using them. Yeah.
Yes. And talk about the kind of, how did you start making art at a very young age? Or did you know it was art?
Yeah, probably not.
Yeah.
But my neighbor was a painter, and he was actually very sick, and he trained me from very little. Like he always wanted to have a daughter, and I was always in his studio. And he was he was the kind of painter that really was very considerate, even from the paintings behind the paintings. Like where do the staples go? Making the paint from scratch, making everything from scratch. And Octavio knows now that. That's why my perhaps obsessive got so no, we need to like cut this like this.
Yes.
And so I definitely learned a lot from this person, but also my mother will allow travelers to just stay in our house.
Good.
That was like good and bad.
Yeah.
But at some point, she actually dated somebody from Easter Island. And there was this Easter Island music group that was touring within Europe to promote music from their culture. And one of the persons who came there was a really good stone carver and wood carver. And I also learned a lot from this person. So yeah, travelers coming in and out also were a huge source of inspiration. Yeah.
And talk to me a little bit about the materials that you like really sort of tend to like turn to. I know you have sort of an affinity for sort of what I would call kind of natural or found materials, but sort of ones that often have like, they feel beautiful, but there's an element almost of the kind of horrific is like too strong of a word, but kind of gross.
I ended up really focusing on all like discarded materials, either from nature or from human consumption, because I like developed some sort of empathy towards them.
Yeah.
And I like to think that I'm working between like death and decomposition for these materials that were used. Like, for instance, all the stained glass is made out of rose petals that were collected from garbage bins at cemeteries.
Yes.
So these roses have been like grown cat, like used for something so important, like the death of a loved one, and then thrown into the garbage.
So they have this, like they're imbued with this extraordinary history.
Exactly.
Yes.
So I feel like in that way it's a collaboration, you know.
Yes.
You cannot like take this kind of
index. Yeah.
that they emanate.
Yes. So all of your materials have this kind of tangible history that have to do to some extent with having been sort of detritus, but they have also, I think, what always I think strikes me so much about your practice is this transformational element into beauty from some element of like death or discardedness or
well, I think beauty, I hope that, I think the word beauty is a
it's
very
complicated word, yes.
But I'm always trying to, I think, I'm hoping that some of the works like first attract you in a sort of like easy
Yes.
way, like the easy side of the beauty work.
Yes.
And
This
then-
is what I'm saying. This sort of dichotomy
Yes.
between this, and I think I started with that, like this dichotomy of like something that like you can find a visual approach into, and then you start to uncover these layers.
Like beauty can mask terrible things.
Yes. Yes, that,
exactly.
yes, it's just beautiful work. It's frankly like incredibly uncritically complicated.
Yeah. For instance,
Yeah, let's talk about the actual work.
well, this piece, the rock itself, it's a replica, precise replica of my mother's rock. And I started seeing this rock as a witness of her life story. And it's the only object that has always been placed in her room through as long as I can remember.
Wow.
So I started obsessing about this specific object because I thought, yes, this really has seen everything. And now we're talking about beauty can
Yeah.
mask terrible things, right? Like, well, some of this story it's not always so beautiful.
Yes.
And there's a lot, she had a very, 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 very difficult life. And when I decided to carve it into place, into the wood floor, I was thinking of several things. So one of them was, as you can see, the carving is not very clean.
Yeah.
Like, you can make carving very smooth and
Yes.
perfect. But in this case, I would really want to make you feel the chisel mark because in that moment I was like thinking that I was gonna literally like myself carve out those memories. And I was
Yes.
going through the process of remembering the ones
Yes.
I was able to as a kid.
Yes.
And,
That's incredibly powerful.
and yeah.
So the act of making is almost this like
Yeah.
sort of, I don't know if cathartic is the right word, but
Yes.
like, yes.
Yeah.
And then there's this kind of like visual sort of almost violence visible in this. Talk to me a little bit about, let's start with the actual act of making. Let's actually start talking about this work. Because obviously this is a theoretically site-specific piece. Meaning like you could make this on site, but this is not actually carved into the floor of this gallery, right?
Right.
You made this in your studio.
Right. We would fill the entire gallery and place it here. But,
Yes.
But I think that rocks, like I'm bringing this rock here,
Yes.
and the rock travels.
The rug travels.
The
Yeah.
rock keeps traveling with this story with it.
Yes, I love,
yeah.
which makes sense for
Yeah,
a rug,
right,
actually. It's
yeah.
just a carved rug.
Yeah.
Yes, that could, so you took the dimensions of the gallery, you ordered essentially wood flooring, and then you carved it. Have you made this work, your mother's rug before?
This one was made last year, and
I see.
you can install anywhere and just keep wood flooring as
And
much
just
as you
keep wood floor.
Yeah,
Oh,
it
of
can be installed
course.
anywhere.
It can be installed anywhere. Amazing. And it just looks completely seamless.
Yeah, well, that's
That's the problem. I got you. Artists are such a pain in the ass. I know. Yes, yes. Well, it's beautiful. I mean, it's perfect. It's totally perfect. I mean, because like all of this, you really get completely the full effect of the rug. And it took me a minute when I first came in. It really, you guys nailed it, because I fully believed that I was walking on the floor of the gallery.
Yeah.
So it has this incredibly powerful ability to kind of transport you into the space that you're in.
Yeah, I think that it's might look like three pieces, but they involve a lot of care to feel like
No, I
seamless.
fully understand that. Talk to me about this work on the wall here. What is the material that I'm looking at? I mean, I know, but tell us.
Yeah. This work is titled Velo de Luto, Mourning Veil. And it's made with 17-year cicada wings sewn together one by one.
Oh my
with,
God.
3 generations of women's hair that grew up in a very patriarchal society like Spain. Wow. So it's my mother's, myself, and my niece. Yeah.
This is a deeply autobiographical exhibition. Yes. Yes.
It is a little,
Yeah. And how did you collect that hair?
So the hair is just asking my family members.
Yeah.
But, one thing that is very important in my work, because we talked about
Yeah.
the discarded, overlooked materials.
Yes.
And it's very important that all the materials are ethically sourced. So,
Yeah.
for instance, the cicada wings are, these ones specifically are from the swarm that happened in Kansas. So I just drive to Kansas. I wait for them to die because the ones, the 17-year cicada wings spend, as you might know, it's a 17-year cycle. And they spend 17 years underground, and then suddenly, like, millions of them come out, and they live for about 2 weeks, reproduce themselves, and then die again. So
Wow.
I wait 17 years, like,
Oh my God.
for that moment, you know? And so it's wild. And people mostly hate them because they are loud, they smell like it's, thousands of them are just there on the floor, like piled up, and it like gets strong. But here you see them in this completely different context. And actually cicadas and this amazing cycle of rebirth was what I was interested on.
That's what I was just about to ask you.
Yeah.
Yes, because that's an incredibly powerful sort of like metaphoric or symbolic.
Exactly,
Yes.
yeah. And even the, you know, a lot of other cultures have used this symbol of the cicada as a symbol of rebirth and the scarcity and all things. So that's how I was seeing, like, reproducing these mourning bells. That's where the shape comes from. And actually, these mourning bells were, like in Spain, you were forced to wear them when your husband were to die. And in many places in Europe, and actually, the dyes that were used to produce these bells, the black dyes, were really toxic. So they would actually be killing the person that was wearing them. So I thought that was also obviously very interesting.
Yes.
And so yeah, this is slow moving toward the future and getting us away from this.
But also with that sort of use of the hair of these multi-generations from your own family, there's obviously like this sort of like memories passed down, cycles of birth and rebirth and moving on. So there's something, and then with you sort of like, to some extent, sort of like carving through the memories, or perhaps carving even out the memories, it feels like a deeply tied together sort of examination of what it means to sort of let go of things, move on with things, allow things to die and recycle, and hopefully be perhaps. I don't know if I'm reading too much, but
I mean, even the head itself, right? It
Yes.
carries the memory of the person.
Yes.
So I mean, I obviously know how my mother, in this case, has lived her life and how
Yes.
she suffered in that kind of society. So and even the younger generation.
Yes.
So I think that there is a change, but it's a slow change.
It is a slow change.
And
And hair in particular also is kind of interesting because it can kind of be cut and then regrow.
Right.
And yes.
you can erase that.
You can erase that. You can make mistakes. That's what I tell my 16-year-old daughter. I'm like, you can be done with that. Like, let's move on. You started to talk about the stained glass.
Yeah. This is more a recent piece.
Yeah.
I actually made it for this exhibition, and as I was saying, like, well, for the past years, I've been collecting since as long as I can remember. But since COVID, I started collecting pretty much all the garbage I could find in cemetery bins.
Wow.
So that's please everybody. I'm not taking them from the graves.
Yeah.
Some people like to listen to that, and
Yeah.
it's important.
Yeah.
It's always like discarded material.
Yeah.
And again, like something so, again, the word beauty, which is complicated.
Yes.
Like something so extraordinary, like a flower that is being used for something so important, and then it's being discarded and it's being thrown away. And I feel like it's like another chance for them to shine through. And there is obviously a huge reference to like stained glass windows, Van Gogh, Tiffany's, and a lot of all that.
It does have that particular architectural stained glass look. Yes.
And they all do talk about nature and ephemerality. But it feels like sometimes very restrained and very like still in a way. And I really wanted to give a chance to nature itself to like shine literally through.
Yes.
Through this like extension of the lifetime, I guess.
Yeah, that makes sense. And it's interesting, both the rug, or it's a rug, but it's also a floor that you've made to some extent. And then this is sort of like a window without a frame. So talk to me about your sort of relationship between art and architecture.
Yeah, that's a good question.
Did you think about it?
have a lot of architects followers.
Yeah, I imagine so, yes.
Maybe I should study architecture.
You don't, I mean, but it's just interesting to me because these are also, as much as these are kind of like very clearly like discrete art objects, they also feel a bit like architectural fragments, like bits of that are kind of like pulled out of what should be kind of like in spaces, but they've been kind of wrenched out of potential spaces, which is kind of just interesting.
I'm really interested in space.
Yeah.
And in like, I feel like my work thrives when I'm given the chance to respond to a specific space.
Yeah.
Or a history within space.
Yeah.
And I think when I was a teenager, I read a quote by Samuel Noguchi that really impacted my work. He said something like, I'm not gonna do justice to the exact language that he used, but he said that the space within a sculpture and a sculpture is sculpture.
Yeah.
And that was, might seem obvious, but the spatial relationship between the objects are really important to me.
Absolutely. I mean, you're making work that kind of, and this is much about like what is happening with contemporary art right now, right? It's defying definition between sculpture, the space of the wall, the space of architecture, the space of installation. And I think that's what's so interesting about your practice, right? You're slipping amongst all of those things. But I think there's something kind of interesting just as you think about kind of slipping from memory, slipping from time, using discarded materials, just like this work that is also kind of fragmenting space, and we kind of imagine it that it should belong in a space, and it's something to think about. Yeah. Anyway. Talk to me about the word, because it comes up a lot in your people's writing about your practice. No, it's really just the word ephemerality.
Yeah, that's interesting to me because I think all of these discarded materials are ephemeral when you treat them like garbage.
Yes.
Once you bring them up and give them this second chance, they are gonna outlast us, all of us.
That's exactly what I was gonna say.
Yeah, this is not going away. Like,
no.
Like I was working last year with the First World War collection of letters from soldiers in Belgium, and you could see a lot of plants dried within the letters. Yeah. Obviously, we can see them in science museums, in like hundreds of years old of dried plants, dried insects, dried this, like this is not. As long as obviously there's not a storm inside the gallery, that all will be fine.
Yeah. No, you're like capturing this kind of thing, and it's like the way it's sort of the function of memory to some extent. But I was sort of sitting here and I was like, you're taking all these things that we think of as detritus or garbage or ephemeral, right? Or ephemeral. We think of ephemeral artworks as things that exist and then they don't exist anymore. But all of this you've kind of made deeply permanent, including the idea of carving a rug into a wood floor, but a rug that can act like a rug and just be moved from place to place. You know, rose petals or cicada wings that have now become like memorialized, so to speak. And memory flits like that, bits and pieces of it stick with you, maybe not in the way, in the full form of the way the experience happened, but it's super interesting to me.
Yeah, it's true. Like maybe it's like a hope to stretch that ephemerality.
Yeah.
Like kind of playing with time a little bit.
Because you're kind of like, your work is absolutely looking at things that were perhaps ephemeral, but like insisting upon like new forms of permanence or shifting.
And I like what you're saying about memory, because I feel like I have the worst memory, and I never know like what happens before or after in my life, or like how old I was. And I feel like that's what really memory is doing to you, right? Like when I was carving this out and I'm trying to think about all of this past, obviously you don't know how accurate is your memory.
Yes. Right, because it exists in like little fragments, but there's parts of it that are real, and then it forms some new model. And people use mnemonic devices, and each of these are like kind of elements of mnemonic devices. The rug in particular is a fascinating one because it was an actual object that holds all of this. But it's so interesting.
And that's why it's also not sealed. The carved part is not sealed because in a way you are keeping it alive. Like this is raw wood. Like it's still absorbing now the history of what happened on the top of it, around it, or
and it will continue to kind of perhaps even chip or like I This is a very strong piece. Yeah, it's really good. The whole show, and it ties together, and you're right, holds together. These are discrete objects, but it is one very cohesive installation, for sure. Thank you. No, thank you. So, it's so good to talk to you too. I know. See, it's so good that we didn't talk before. I know. Like everybody's standing, so maybe I'm gonna ask if people have any questions for you. Yes.
Can you talk a little bit more about, I mean, I think you sort of phrased it as the flip side of beauty or the dark side of beauty. What are the different sort of nuances and complex meanings of that to you?
Yeah, I guess for me, I think beauty can be an entry point to art in general. Like, I think my hope is that my work is more like an onion that has multiple layers. And beauty, I feel like, is the outer layer. And it can catch you from the outside, like links, right? Like, oh, look at this translucent shiny thing. But then, like, when you get up close and you start thinking about it, you can start peeling off all of those other layers of meanings. And for instance, an obvious example, I made this tapestry during COVID that it was all with all of these garbage that I was collecting, and it turned out to be a 48-foot long tapestry. And from far, it looked like this happy flowers tapestry, but then when you get up close, you start seeing things like ribbons that say "Happy Birthday, Moms," or "I miss you," or all the flowers are actually deteriorated, and the flags are missing color from the sun bleach. So you start noticing that, oh, these are actually not so happy flowers, you know. So it brings you to this other world. So yeah, I mean, in the case of my mother, it's more personal, but I was hoping you could see it also through the literal act of carving out, and like there's this kind of like anxious, hyper detail, a little bit obsessive repetition of this need of understanding a past that was so complicated for her, and perhaps for me as a kid as well. So, okay.
Oh, so many questions. Yeah, right here.
Oh, I just wondered, so actually when I was a child, my grandmother had this wreath on the wall, and over time I slowly realized it was made of human hair.
Oh my gosh.
One of these like Victorian, so I wondered if you've been at all inspired, because the same thing happened to me when I looked closely.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, that's hair.
Yeah.
Do you know about the
Yeah, I mean, I know about the art of hair work, definitely Victorian times and the history of it. I'm actually inviting, she's called herself hair anthropologist to my class next semester. It's called Material Poetic, and she's gonna give us a lecture and a demo of it. But yeah, I'm sure I was influenced by it, definitely. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Something I find astounding is just the range of skills that are needed to produce piece like with working with this, if you say use CNC machines, they're mostly used for bullet trainings to make this steel on this.
Yeah.
I'm curious, like early in your career, how much time was spent just like investing in these like raw skills without the intention to make art in the future, but it was like just curating the skill set. And if now, is it like, do you have all the skills you need to make these pieces, or is it like start with it and then what are the skills you need?
Yeah.
Great question.
I appreciate your question because
Yeah.
it's I mean, I was as I was saying earlier, like I did had like a really early childhood. Like I was a studio assistant basically since I could walk, but then my earliest art education was in Escola Massana in Barcelona. It's a 3-year program of just sculpture that is more towards the more traditional way of understanding sculpture. So I did a lot of wood carving, sword carving, forge, but not forge like the ones in the States where you push a button and like this like gas comes out, and no, you have to make it fire, like crank it in like a little bar of steel will take you forever. You know, you have to sweat and like you have to be very determined to like learn basically. And I was very grateful for this place. I ended up also doing an apprenticeship and work at the Sagrada Familia. Gaudi's Sagrada Familia is the stone carver, and just being very perseverant. But then when I was able to come to the States, I actually moved to Vancouver in 2011, and I didn't speak English, so I went there by myself. And I ended up in a stone carving studio in the middle of nowhere. And like, I was like knocking on their door, me, stone. And the guy looked at me like, what is this person? Like, I'm in Spain. I think he felt sorry for me. He didn't want to charge me or anything. He just let me do stone carving in his studio. And he looked at my work, and he's the one who was like, you know, you can apply to, because I didn't finish my undergrad in Spain, you can apply to do your undergrad in the States, or like, I was like, oh. And he paid my whole application and got me to send every single school with scholarship to go to the States.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah. That's an amazing story.
It was
Oh.
forever grateful. And in the States, I was able to get access to technology.
Yeah.
And I learned, obviously, you know, all of these other things that in conjunction with, also I was in Chicago, which it was like the complete extreme opposite of what I lived before. And so I feel like those opposites really helped me, like the cold, the technology, the not access to nature, and not speaking English, and you know, not knowing anybody, helped me combine those two worlds. And I tell my students, you know, you can Google it and learn.
Yeah.
You know, like, just come on. We all have so much access to information nowadays. Like let's talk about ideas, and then if we don't know something, we'll figure it out.
Yes.
Yeah.
I say that to people all the time. Like, have the idea, and then there's a way to figure out how to do it. Yes. Yes, sorry.
Is this the same road that was at the pond?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because around that, what you couldn't walk over is, right? You had, it was, because the space was much larger.
Yeah.
It was the bed and the piano.
Right. Yeah.
It did
You were
feel
there?
Going into, yeah.
Ah.
I'm friends with Dionis. Also one Josesi, so. The space looked like a house.
Yeah.
And I feel also this piece with the rosette that was
Right.
outside feels
Yeah.
like a kind of a smaller version
Yeah.
of that show in some way, but with less elements.
And then.
But the bed for me, like the way you created space in that, it looked really like haunted.
Yeah.
For you to talk about this, like roses specifically coming from the cemetery, like what's your relationship to go roasting or like that kind of hunting of this? It's not just materials.
Yeah.
There are like specific ways in which I feel there's like an afterlife.
Yeah.
In some of this, that and like the highs that you collected,
Yeah.
and the sort of like obsession with materials that I feel kind of have some kind of ghosting or hunting
Yeah.
ontology. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't really think about those two words, honestly, but I think, you know, my mom is a witch for sure. She's a weaver and a witch, so, and a hippie. So I do believe on material energy, I guess, the imbued energy after instinct used for a certain specific thing, or in nature as well. Like, so that's what I always say, like, I feel like it's more like a collaboration with that material, not like me using that material. And so it's like both languages like together making this one thing. And so yes, I'm definitely using those energies on the work to you can make it more, I guess. But as a whole, you know, like, it was really, really important for me to have those two worlds, like the domestic and the outside. And there was a lot of space. There was like, I don't know, over 2,000 square foot or more. And that's why even one of the most important parts was this like window bars that replicated my mother's metal window bars, but they were made in glass.
Yeah.
And again, seeing the idea of the metal bars that you supposedly have supposed to protect you from the danger of the outside.
Oh, yeah.
But what happens when the danger is inside the household?
Yes.
So you had this like wall that didn't allow you to get into the gallery itself. So you had to go out and go around and then get into the other exhibition space, which was the inside of the house. And you could see the viewers from both sides. So there was also that kind of like
All this kind of like almost like the divide.
tension
Oh, that's
between seeing somebody from the window
so
wires.
interesting. I've seen so many images of that show, but that's very interesting. Thank you for bringing that up. And just like the ghosting, it's a little bit what we were talking about, just this like being imbued with a different history, but it's just like a different kind of a word. So interesting. Okay. Thank you so much. That was so generous and so amazing. And thank you guys. So anyways, amazing.